in autumn no less. Many young buckan, that time of male Warrowhood between the end of childhood at 20 and the coming of age at 30, in fact, most young buckan of the Boskydells had been or would be in training. Even before the onset of winter, which had struck early and hard this year, killing most of the late crops, wild wolves had been seen roaming in large packs up north, and strange men, too, were spied in the reaches across the borders beyond the Thornwall. And it was rumored that occasionally a Warrow or two, or even an entire family, would mysteriously disappear. But where they went, or just what happened to them, no one seemed to know. And some folks said they had heard an awful evil was way up north in the wastes of Gron. Why, things had not been this bad since the passing of the flaming dragon star with its long, blazing tail, silently cleaving the heavens, what with the crop failures, cattle and sheep dying, and the plagues that it had brought on. But that was 5 years ago and past, and this winter and wolves and strange happenings was now. And down at the One-Eyed Crow, not only was there talk of the trouble in Northdell, but also of the big men far north at Shallarain Keep, mustering, it seems, for war. At the moment, holding forth to a most attentive Warrow audience, was Will Longtoes, the second deputy constable of Eastdell, who, because of his dealings with the authorities, namely various Eastdell mayors, and the chief constable in Cinterdell, appeared to know more than most about the strange doings abroad.
Now, I heard this from young Toby Holder, who got it in Stonehill. Them Holders have been trading with Stonehillers ever since the Bosky was founded. They came up there in the Weanwood in the first place, they say. Anyway, the word has come to Stonehill to gather wagons, hundreds of wagons, and send him up to the keep.
Hundreds of wagons? Up to the keep? Warrows looked at each other in puzzlement.
"Whatever for, Will?"
asked someone in the crowd.
"What can they want with hundreds of wagons?" "Move people south, I shouldn't wonder, out of harm's way," answered Will.
What? Move 'em south? With wild wolves running loose and all? Will held up his hands, and the babble died down.
"Toby said rumor has it that, up to the keep, King Arian is gathering his men for war. Toby said the word is that the big folks are going to send their women and youngers and elders west to Welland, and south to Gunnar, Dvalan, and even to Pellar."
As Will took a long pull from his mug of ale, many in his audience nodded at his words, for what he said seemed to fit in with what folks had heard before.
"But what about the wolves, Will?"
asked Teddy Cloverhay of Willowdell, who was up in Woody Hollow delivering a wagon-load of grain.
Well, ain't the big folks afraid that the wolf packs will jump their traveling parties, it being winter and all, and the packs roaming the countryside?"
A general murmur of agreement came from the listening crowd, and Teddy repeated his question. "What about the wolves?"
"Wolves there may be, Teddy," answered Will. "But Toby says the big folks are preparing for war, and that means they're going to be sending some kith away to safe havens, wolves or not."
Will took another pull on his ale.
"Anyways, I reckon that the wolves won't tackle a large group of travelers, the wolf being what he is, preying on the weak and defenseless and all."
"Well," responded Teddy, "there ain't many as is weaker than a younger or some old gaffer, or even a woman. Seems to me as they wouldn't send them kind of folks out west or south to fend against wolves." Again there was a general murmur of agreement, and Feeney Proudhand, the Budgeon's wheelwright, said, "Teddy is right as rain. Folks just don't send their kin out against wolves. Not even the big folks would do that. It sounds like word from the beyond."